Hello again, it's Steve, and I am here with Sam Anthony. Hello, Sam.
How are you, Steve?
I am really good today. How are you?
Well, I had a long drive to get here for this for this interview, as you know, but I'm better now that I'm talking to you.
Thank you so much, and it's my privilege to have you here.
Thank you
And
very
as
much.
you know, you're welcome. And as you know, I'm interviewing you as a freedom fighter, which I understand is quite the title for our gallery of freedom fighters, and it's an opportunity to tell us why you are fighting for freedom. So let's start with that question. Sam, why are you fighting for freedom?
Well, you know, originally when I got into my business, things weren't the way they are today. And obviously I'm in the media business, and I never ever saw what was coming. I never thought that the media ever would lie. I figured they were just here to tell you the truth, build an audience. And so when I initially got in this business, like any other entrepreneur, it was to capitalize on something and make some money off of it, like anybody else. But over the years of doing this, and fighting to move the ball forward, I came to realize that what I'm doing is much larger than me. And it's not really about me, Steve. It's really about what am I going to leave behind? Because, if we're gone and we do nothing to stop this, then who's going to have to pick up the ball and run with it? It's going to be our kids, right? So the reason that I'm really doing this is because I'm trying to leave behind something that people won't be disgusted with, if you will.
Wow, that is a fantastic legacy. So you feel a sense of responsibility to the next generation to, it's kind of like a variation of the Boy Scout code. Scouts want to leave the place a little bit better than when they got there. You at least don't want to leave it worse. Is that kind of how
Well,
you
I
look at it?
mean, I have kids, I have grandkids, right? So does everybody else. I mean, you see what's going on. This is right in front of our eyes. And so, how could you leave this to them? I mean, they won't even know what to do. So, this needs to be stopped now, as I see it. And we need to do everything we can. I mean, look, what I'm doing is is something that's important and is critical for getting information out, but everybody can do their part. It's just what I have, I think, is bigger than all of us. I mean, you know what I do. So, my product puts the power of the press in the hands of the people and essentially gives them their freedom back. And we need to make sure that this is how I see it. Um, Local news is a backbone of a free society. Okay, we all know that the legacy media is going the way of the dinosaur, and without it, who's going to protect us? Now we already know the ones who are left are not interested in that. Okay, so who's going to fix that? And that's what I'm fighting for, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish.
What is the hardest part of this fight? What is your biggest challenge?
I think the hardest part of my business is seeking the capital I need to grow this. And you know for for you understand it because I've shown you before. I have the same scale as Facebook or Twitter. It's just massive. And like any of those products, all of them were funded by Silicon Valley, every one of them. And they put huge amounts of money in these companies to scale them across the globe. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist today. And Silicon Valley won't play with me, none of the venture firms, because they're all woke. So you have to go to the individual entrepreneurs or other freedom fighters to say, here's what I'm doing, or here's how I'm trying to fix this thing. Because the old guard is not interested in letting us in. For some reason, they just want to let Rome burn. Don't know why. I don't know how they get an upside from it. But the biggest challenge for me has been getting the capital I need to scale this. And we talked about this. What I could do in a year or in 10 years could be done in 6 months with money. Okay. It's going to get done. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I will get to the finish line. But all money does is fuel something to get to the finish line quicker. That's been the hardest challenge for me.
No, I get that. And that's actually a very common problem, especially for companies that are not woke. And you're coming across as being very determined. Have you always been this kind of determined person, or is this a new version of you?
I have like a type AAA personality. Anything I tell you I'm going to do, I do. It's a 100% chance I get it done. Okay. And this business I started years ago and I didn't quit. And I never even realized what I had was so important. But now I see it even further. And now it's gotten to the point where it's gotten so big, you know, nobody can't not see it at this point. So we've gotten this now to the point where just pour some gas in the tank and we can win the race. That's where we're at. So it's now I'm even more convicted, but it's really because of the landscape and what I see happening. When I listen to, Ann Vandersteel and I talk, and she sent me a clip she did from Texas, and it showed she was actually video child trafficking happening. And I'm thinking, and nobody would do anything about it. And she got kicked off the property. And so to me, if nobody's going to do anything about it, what is this world going to come to? So somebody has to do it. And we can't rely on the mainstream media anymore because nobody believes them. Because somehow they've got a political agenda too. Don't ask me why. I have no idea why. But apparently somebody's getting paid off at another level. And everybody's seen the TV shows where you have 100 different TVs with them all saying the same thing all across the country. Well, that was written by one guy, right? That just, okay. So therein lies the problem, right? I mean, so we need citizen journalists to step up. We need a lot of people to step up. And there are a lot of people fighting this fight. You know that. But what I'm doing, I personally believe the media is the problem, Steve. I believe the media is the problem, because if the media was actually calling them out on everything and really doing investigative work, all this would end, but they're not.
I get that.
Okay. It would
So,
all,
are you basically discouraged, or do you have any optimism for there being progress made?
uh, we're having massive progress made. What I need is to scale it up even quicker. I'm not discouraged. I get a little aggravated at times, but that's my personality, right? I got that type A personality. So I'm pushing, I'm pushing, I'm pushing. I want it now. But I think for us, I've come to the conclusion that the people that have the most will do the least. I may have told you that before. It's a shame, but they're the ones that are holding on to everything they got. I've got mine, and I don't really care about you, kind of thing. It's the ones that have nothing that are doing the most. They're trying to solve this problem. So for me, in my business, just to scale it quicker, the the people that I'm looking for are going to be the patriots who want to make a difference, who see what I'm doing and say, look, how do we fuel this thing so we can get this to the finish line, which will help everybody. It's all about information, right? And I listened to one podcaster say it. He said the mainstream media still controls a massive portion of the population, and they're controlling the narrative. How do you take that away? You're looking at them, and I'll get it done.
I believe you. Let's suppose that a patriot capitalist came by tomorrow and gave you the money you need. Um, if I was you, I'd anticipate even more flack from the naysayers now, because at that point you're really threatening their vested interest. Are you
Okay.
concerned about receiving even more pressure than you are now as you get bigger?
I'm sure we'll have some. I mean, it's like anything else. You're going to be a target. The good news is I'm really am getting help. Okay, and I don't know what to expect, but as we had this conversation, remember we're the media in every market. Okay, with global coming, and because of that, and because of the fact that we will publish all news. So if I get a tip from somebody in any market, as long as that's real and credible and our journalists will look into it, that content will that article will be written. So this, I believe, will end up becoming the dumping ground for news tips from people that are patriots, and they're exposing maybe their bosses who, with documents, maybe they work for somebody that's committing crimes. And so when you get higher up the food chain is when you run into the problems, because those people, they're going to go after me as the problem for exposing the crime rather than themselves for committing the
Right.
crime. But I don't care. That's the exact words. Okay. So you heard it from me. I don't care.
I get that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the citizen journalists, why are they joining your ranks?
Steve, there's almost 500,000 news reporters out of work that are advertising it on LinkedIn. It's not like they have a choice. Okay, there's nobody hiring. All the mainstream media is dying. Nobody's hiring. You see it all the time. We had in the last couple of months there was 3 bankruptcies. I just saw the New York Times last couple of weeks ago just got rid of their whole sports staff. I mean, they're not expanding. Everything is contracting. So all these people are looking for work. And so we give them a home and a place to continue on. So when I say citizen journalists, I call them citizen journalists because you could have never been a news reporter, but you could still go out there and you could publish the facts. You could actually take a video. I mean, you're still reporting the news. If something locally is happening in your market, we could publish that content. But that content's going to appear just in that geography unless it, makes national news. But the citizen journalists are really the displaced people in the industry. And just like any other business, not all police officers are bad. Not all school teachers are bad. Certainly not all journalists are bad. But there's always the ones that make it bad for everybody else. These people just want to go back to work. They want to, write a story. I ask journalism students all the time, why did you get into this? And they say, because we love to write. Just remember, there's still a demand for news. It's just consumption has changed. So what we did for them was just build a platform around it where they can monetize it and be able to make a living. That's all we've done. So it's
Well,
all
you're a patriot and conservative, and you understand the importance of um, patriots and conservatives having a louder voice. But it sounds like you're not hiring journalists according to any particular ideology or value set. It's just if they're a journalist, they're a journalist. Or are you looking for people with a certain perspective?
No. What First of all, most journalists are not investigative journalists. It's the guy writing about the high school football game or the car crash or the city council meeting. And you have all kinds. You have the travel journalists. You go on LinkedIn, say freelance travel journalists, you'll see them, or a health journalist or a home and garden journalist. They like to write about home and garden. So I'm very broad. We publish content in all these different categories. But then you have the ones that are the investigative. Those are completely different. And so the investigative journalists are the one, like those are the ones that are making a couple, 200-300 grand a year that now all lost their jobs, right? And a lot of them, in my world, because we're digital, the younger generation understands how YouTube works with its monetization model. The older generation that work for the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Miami Herald, the Chicago Tribune, any mainstream media news outlet, they got paid a salary. They uncovered the dirt. They wrote the story. The paper had the circulation. It works different today. The way the news media works today is the content creators, the journalists, all have social media followings, and they all have, and some of these people have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 followers. And what they do is they'll write their story and then they submit it to us because they have a monetized account with us. And then they share their story to all the people that follow them that want to consume their content, but they're consuming it on my site and we have all the ads sold for them and they get a percentage of the ad revenue. So I'm telling you this because the older generation just goes, what do you do? Right? I mean, they're like, huh? So there's no salary here, right?
Right,
But the
right,
younger generation understands it completely,
right.
so this is where it's all going. As I told you before, this is so simple. The future of news will be one global media giant by zip code. It will allow the public to interact and post their own news, views, opinions, and classifieds locally. It will have a monetization model for news reporters where they can actually write a story, share it on their social media, and make money off of that article. And depending how good the article is how much they make. And if they get one that's really big that goes viral, they'll make 100 times the money off that story. And then an ad platform where our self-service where somebody could log in and buy their own ad, target that ad around the content that would be relevant to their product. So if you're a golf store, you want to be around golf related content, and they can do it as granular as one zip code or as broad as nationwide. This is not fantasy, Steve. This is already happening. Facebook will be the closest model to me. not because we're in the same business, but because they geolocate and they could sell ads around user generated content as granular as one zip code or as broad as nationwide. So can I. It's my scale. That's what it is. And nothing on the internet works locally. You need scale. That's why they're all global.
Yeah, I get that. You've referred to print media dying and digital media rising. Are you concerned about hacks? Are you concerned about people that have a certain amount of control over the digital arena, about the internet, cracking down on you, or do you consider that to be really not a threat?
Well, I'm sure they're going to try. Um, this is something that always crosses my mind. We haven't got there yet, but at some point in time, they will absolutely crack down on us simply because information is power. You've heard the expression. So he who controls all the information has all the power. So yeah, I'll basically have all the power and I can push all the narrative. My goal is not to push the narrative. I'm going to let anybody who watches this video know I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I just have common sense. And these people should be working for us, not themselves. You should not go into office being worth 100 grand and come out being worth 30 million. Something is definitely wrong there. Okay. So as I see it, if I found out Donald Trump committed a crime, our audience should know that. It should be published. Okay. No different than if Joe Biden committed a crime. It doesn't really matter. The public needs to know the facts. That's it. You don't need your opinion. They need to know the facts so they can form their own conclusion. That's it. Nothing more with that. Everything they do now is nothing more than grandstanding, right? It's all just trying to, shift the narrative to make somebody look bad. There's really they're really not news organizations anymore. They're political propaganda machines. Is what they are.
I see that. Um, you're obviously a very clear thinker and a very objective thinker. Is that natural to you, or do you work hard at retaining your intellectual independence?
Well, I like you form my own conclusions, right? So I see everything's going on, and I could formulate my own conclusions based on what I see. I try and look elsewhere to get information, but for me, I've already formed my conclusion, and the conclusion is that this country is in dire need of help. And as I see it, it's really the media that's the problem. Politicians have been lying since the day they were born. I mean, if you're going to be a politician, you could never tell somebody the truth. They're never going to vote for you. You always have to lie. So if the media was calling them out on it, all this stuff would end.
Mm.
So my game plan is to build the largest news organization in the world where all this information starts to flow, and it's just free sharing of information. That's all it is. The news organization, I have to tell you, I've learned some stuff being in this business about the news people, and you saw it with, I think it was Katie Couric maybe, or somebody that had a story about Epstein. Remember they made a movie about it and they wouldn't let her run it because somebody made a phone call and said, don't run that story. Okay. That won't ever happen with me. Okay. If you have a story and it's real and it's credible, it's going. Period. End of story.
And you have no concerns personally about any ramifications because there's too many allegations of the other side shutting people up before they get to blow the whistle, and you're bold enough to have some whistleblowers
Well, that's all it
published.
is. So, do I think I will run into problems later? Yeah. Am I concerned with it now? No. Um, the problems that I'm going to face are the powers to be are going to basically not want me to publish their crimes. Okay. And so my response to them is going to be then stop committing crimes. We won't have nothing to publish. I don't even know what to say to you. But that's really what it's coming down to.
I get that. All right, let's wrap it up this way. On the one hand, you've stressed the importance of leaving a better place for your children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and so on. But you've also spoken on a higher level about the importance of preserving the country. Can you kind of summarize for us what America means to you, and why you are that concerned about this country and for its future?
Sure. I grew up not in downtown Chicago, but in Illinois, outside the suburbs, and you know, I went out into the workforce, and my father was a blue collar worker, and my mother and father always taught me the value of the dollar, and it's hard to make money. And it was kind of funny because the first year I worked, I made over 100,000. Right? I'm like, this is easy. So you know, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? They're just
Wow.
it's falling off of trees. Um, so and when you're young, you just do stupid things. And I worked in the investment business, and I did that for a lot of years. And it really you know it really did. I think as you age, your perspective change on things, Steve. What was important to you 30 years ago, 20 years ago is not important today. So as I look back, I thought, well, how could all of this have happened if I didn't live in the United States of America? The answer, if you were living in Nigeria, you really think we would be having this conversation?
No, not at all.
Okay, I mean, so how did it all happen? Because when you're in it and you're young and you're having fun, it's like, oh, this is like, it's like Candyland, and you're just having a ball, and all you want to do is have fun. But as you go through life, and the things that were important to you before just mean absolutely nothing today. And now what you never thought of, you're going, wow, how did this all come about? So now as I look back, I have one son and a couple grandkids, and I look at his world and what he's going to face. But even the grandkids, as they get older, what kind of world is it going to be for them? So I think it's real important that prosperity is for anybody who wants it. I think that we need to get this country back on track so that everybody has the ability to be prosperous if that's what they choose. And right now, we live in a world of crony capitalism. It's all rigged. It's all one-sided. I don't even believe we have free and fair elections anymore. It's just gotten that bad, and it's obvious and it's in your face. You could, you saw 2,000 mules. Okay, did that happen? Was it real or was it phony? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, it was real. And
Hmm.
so my point, this is what's going on. How do you stop that? That's my point. Because you're getting people elected that were never elected. And these people aren't interested in the best interest of us. They're interested in the best interest of themselves. Look at Nancy Pelosi. I don't know what her net worth is. People have told me 10 times. But basically, they told me she was like the best trader on planet Earth. She beat the S&P 500 and every hedge fund out there. Okay. She knows exactly when to make a move and when to pull out. So, what do you call it? Something has to change here. She's
Yeah.
the only one that benefits while she destroys the district she's in. San
Yeah.
Francisco. I talked to another guy who lived in San Francisco. He moved. He lives in North Carolina now. He goes, I had to get out of San Francisco. It's just crime, and he goes, it's just there. You just don't want to live there anymore. It's that bad. And so she made all her money, and she lives behind a wall and a fence with guards, right? But all the rest of you, and somehow she continues to get elected. Can you explain that to me? It's because it's all fake. She never was.
Yeah. Well, Sam Anthony, your head is on straight. You've given us the straight story. It's so wonderful to listen to you because you see what you're up against. You see the odds, and yet your strength comes through and your determination comes through. I want to thank you for sharing that today. And I
Well,
want to thank you for making that available because there's going to be a lot of people who listen to you and say, I got to be like this guy. So thank you, Sam, for giving us that gift.
well, thanks for having me, Steve. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.